which is not allowing them to be happy, and they're looking for that happiness somewhere outside. Unless they heal themselves internally, many are able to give up even without doing any inner healing. Of course, they can, and many are able to give it up for life, a substance abuse. But that's not something that I working on the addiction. We work on the emotional addictions that they've held on to, whether it is guilt, whether it is lack of self-love or lack of love for people. So we're completely working only on that. And in the process, while the soul heals themselves, they don't realize that that substance just is not needed in their life. So not working directly on substance addiction or anything, but just working on the healing of the soul, which they have to do themselves, because we can't heal people. We can only share with them what we're learning about healing the self, and they will use that to heal themselves. And depending on what internal vacuum they have created, they just have to fill that space, and the need for something from outside will just automatically fall away. It's a result that happens of the emotional healing.
Can I say something? I think.
And would that be building that emotional immunity as well, as you've described? Same
Yes,
exact
yes,
patterns,
yes,
developing those new
yes,
patterns until they begin to take over?
yes. Because if I am not experiencing something, then I'm looking for it outside. When
Yeah.
I start experiencing it, I will not find the need for it outside. That could be not just addiction of alcohol or drugs, it could be gadget addiction. It could be people dependency. Addictions come in a lot of ways. Attachment comes in a lot of different ways. Even attachment to me being right always.
Mm.
Attachment that my idea, attachment is so subtle.
Yes.
You know, very subtle. Attachment is an addiction. So once we start working on ourselves gently, all these addictions,
Yeah.
the very visible ones which the world can see, and the very subtle ones which we know, but we didn't even know it's an attachment or an addiction. So even they start falling off.
And a seed I would plant with you also is
Yes.
your language of breaking them from it
Yeah.
shows that you've got a really nice hammer. You might be treating everyone as a nail. Might be. I don't think so. I'm sure you have many different tools in your toolbox. But when you come across something that's really resistant and you're really trying to help the family, I know how much you care, and your intensity increases, and there's nothing wrong with that. But perhaps we need some other metaphors besides break. And this one is more healing. This is more building. This is more creating something or awakening something that already exists within someone that they've forgotten.
And is something else to consider, Adam, the practice of recognizing their soul. If you think about it, they have an identity that they are an addict. And so there's a lot of shame around that. There's a lot of guilt around it. It's a lower identity rather than reflecting their sovereignty, reflecting that you're such a beautiful soul beyond the behavior, beyond the addiction, and to reflect that they probably haven't seen themselves possibly ever like that. And the fact that through your eyes that you recognize the purity of their being, the beauty of their being, beyond the behavior, and hold the space from that clarity of love, I think is just such a gorgeous practice, Sister Shivani, and you're reflecting the truth of their being. I can't think of anything more profound, and that would be healing in itself, and would create a space of receptivity that they would want to share and trust you, and open that door to their heart to be able to have a deeper and more meaningful conversation, possibly.
And it's less of a push, so less push back, right? You push,
Yes.
and there's pushback. One of the things I really honor in you, Sister
Yes.
Shivani, is so much love, but still strength.
Yes.
But it's not a push strength. It's a pull strength. Can you feel it?
Yes.
She's pulling you towards where it is
Clarity.
because she owns it within herself. She's not pushing it on you so that you have to accept it or not. That's not where she's coming from. That's part of the power of her message. It comes from her heart, from her soul. And you have that, Adam. But sometimes when we feel like we're not getting to the level we want to help and we think it's life and death, sometimes more push happens. And I certainly made that mistake plenty of times myself. But the toolbox of your heart and soul is much larger than just breaking them. And I think that might be a helpful thing to remember. And then just think of the example she just gave for the other lady here about her father. That's the exact same model. Right?
Just remember, you're talking to a pure, beautiful soul.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, we go beyond labels of even relationship, roles, positions. We're living in a world where it's a role to role connection, it's a position to position connection, it's an achievement to achievement connection, or it's a relationship connection. But those are all labels that we have acquired in this lifetime.
Yes.
Connect to the soul.
Yes.
So, you know, just all the labels fall off. But that is if we are living in that consciousness ourselves, not living in a consciousness of what we've achieved. That is there to use, that is there to work and live with. But who am I? And then connecting to who they are becomes very easy, actually. You don't have to do it. You just have to do it for the self. So, what you see in yourself is only what you will see in others. If you see yourself as a gender, your attention will go on the gender of the other person. If you see yourself as a nationality or a religion, that's what you will see in the others. If you see yourself as a qualification and a position, that's what you will pay attention to. But if you remember that you are a pure, beautiful soul, then that's what you will see the other person, and they'll receive that vibration from you.
Yes.
Yes, Jack.
Namaskaram, Sister Shivani.
Namaskar.
I've, this is my third spiritual trip with Tony and Sage, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from the speakers that have come to these events, and I've gone to a lot of their events and read their books. Recently, a lot of, the universe is speaking to me about death, and I think you mentioned death as well, and Sadhguru just wrote a book about death that's sitting in my nightstand. When I get back, I'm going to read. And yesterday, we had a gentleman speaking, Mo, about how the death of his son changed his life and put him on a mission. And one thing he said that kind of stuck out to me was, his son's dream and mission in life was to impact people. And it was kind of that mission that he's continuing, and he accepted that his son's passing was, him going into the spirit, the divinity, and being in touch with everybody. And, coming from a Christian background, we're always taught, different things, and there's a little bit of conflicting values there that, like my grandmother passed a year ago, and for me, seeing her soul go through that journey, for me it was a very beautiful process. But for my mother, she grieved for months and she couldn't let go. It was a very difficult process, and again, I spoke to her soul instead of telling her, you're doing right, you're doing wrong. And she eventually released that identity and connection